Good evening, Fáil Sharash. You're very welcome back to our fourth and final conversation during this Catholic Schools Week 2022, where, as you may have remembered, the theme is Living Life to the Full, those words of Jesus from St. John's Gospel. We've had a retired principal on Monday. We had two Year 14 pupils on Tuesday. We had a chair of governors last night. And tonight we have someone who was a teacher and who's gone on to other things, greater things as well, Emmet Thompson from the city here. Emmet, thanks very much for coming along this evening. So you trained as a teacher. Tell us why you wanted to be a teacher in the first instance.
Yeah, well, I was a past pupil of Rosemount Primary School, which is in the St. Eugene's Parish. I had 7 fantastic years there. I then moved on to St. Joseph's Boys' School for 7 years. I had a fantastic experience in there with some brilliant teachers, and the experience that I had with those fantastic teachers and some in particular led me into a career of teaching, in particular sport. I remember 4th year, 5th year, I had a PE teacher, Mr. Gibbons. He was a brilliant role model, excellent teacher, and it's probably the experience that I got from his lessons and him as a teacher that sort of made up my mind that I wanted to go on and do a career in sports and in particular teaching.
So your primary degree was in sports?
Yeah, my primary degree was in sports and exercise science, and after completing that, I decided...
And that was where?
I did that in Liverpool, John Moores University.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then did you have to do a PGCE after that?
Yeah, I actually worked in a special needs school as a teaching assistant for a year because I felt that if I wanted to go on to do teaching, if I enjoyed the experiences working as a learning support teacher throughout that year, I would then go on then and do a PGCE in this and have the experience to go on, because it was pretty difficult to get on the PGCE at that particular time. But yeah, the experience from working in special needs school really helped me. And
had you good teaching practice, as they call it, or school-based learning during your PGCE, your certificate in education?
I had 2 fantastic schools. The first one was St. Francis of Assisi, which was a Catholic school in Kensington and Liverpool. It would have been a challenging enough area, but the pupils were fantastic. The staff morale was fantastic in it, and more importantly, it was the Catholic ethos of the actual school, and the teachers and the experience that was given to me there was first class.
And I presume lots of the children weren't from a Catholic background?
Many of the children weren't from Catholic background. There's many that were from Muslims and Protestants and all different forms of Christian groups. They all came together. And they thoroughly enjoyed it, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think the Catholic ethos in the school was prevalent right throughout, and hence the reason why I enjoyed it so much. And
why the school, I suppose, was popular too with people who weren't from a Catholic background?
Yeah, it was. I think it was oversubscribed at that particular time that I was there, and yeah, the children thoroughly enjoyed the experience and the learning experience which they had, and it led them on to stay in towards post-16.
Okay. And then you decided to come back here at some stage then?
Yeah, well, after that placement I was in St. Anselm's in the Wirral as part of the PGC. It was a Christian Brothers school, again a Catholic school. I've always been in a Catholic school. So yeah, I had great experience on that as well, and then I had decided after being in Liverpool for 5 years I wanted to come home, and the time was right, and I decided then in September 2009 that I came home.
Mm-hmm. And then you taught here eventually in your old school, were you saying?
Yeah. It always seems someone actually said to me one time about teaching, you never leave school, you always seem to come back. But yeah, when I came back, I was doing supply teaching a lot around schools. I started off with St. Peter's, that used to be in Craigan as well. I was in there for a couple of years and really enjoyed it in there. And then when it when that school closed, a lot of students they transferred down to St Joseph's, and I was down in St Joseph's teaching as well.
And I suppose PE would have been a very important subject, particularly for engaging with boys.
Yeah,
for
they actually
teenage boys. I mean, it gives you a certain credibility or a certain kudos.
Yeah. Well, pupils love coming to PE. The majority of them, like, they want to be there. They want the most challenging thing is they all seem to want to play football, and you have to highlight to them there's various other different sports and different parts of the curriculum which you have to participate. Yes, we're coming to football, but yeah, they love coming there, they love participating, and I actually really enjoyed it as well. You got to know the pupils, you knew the teams that they supported, you could build a relationship, you could joke with them, and I also enjoyed the theory element as well, when you're in the classroom setting at that GCSE level. And
about healthy living, I suppose that's part of it too.
Yeah, I think that's important, especially as a teacher in any subject, that personal, social, the physical and the moral development in pupils is really important.
Good man. And then after a while, you moved on from teaching, much though you loved the teaching job.
I did. I really enjoyed teaching, and I seen it as something that I would do for the rest of my life. But call came one time, strangely enough, from Siobhan, who was the chair, who was speaking last night, and she said there was a role in St Eugene's Parish as a pastoral coordinator. Would I be interested in it? And I was trying to think. It's like, well, I don't know if I would be suitable, and so I reflected on it. I had a conversation with many people, and I decided, yeah, I would take the step, and 6 years later, here I am.
So it's very much a parish-based ministry job.
It is, yes. It's working with the primary schools and post-primary schools in the St Eugene's and the Long Tower parishes, and that's why it was probably something I decided I would go on to, because I was still involved in the education, and it's creating that link and strengthening the link between the school and the parish. And at times in my role, it's very easy because we have fantastic teachers, and in particular teachers that's developing the Catholic ethos in the schools, and making my job exciting and easy, because the relationships being built up with them allows me.
I certainly have the impression, just from talking to people here over this past few nights, that a lot of our Catholic schools here are very keen to reach out, A, to their own local communities, and B, across the divides that have been sort of so caricatured as being awful here in Derry.
Yeah, most certainly, Bishop. I can only speak from my experiences. I work in a Long Tower parish with Long Tower Primary School and the Nazareth House Primary School. And we also work in particular as well in shared education projects. So in around June time, around the Feast of St Columba, we worked in a Columba pageant. So for 9 weeks leading up to that, we were in the Fountain Primary School organising the pageant and delivering that pageant, then an audience in the Playhouse where schools in round schools from Nazareth House, Long Tower and the Fountain would all come towards that celebration. It's been brilliant experiences, and they're always reaching out.
Nothing artificial. It's actually something where everyone feels they have a stake in.
Yeah, most certainly. All the different key stakeholders in that actual production through the Church's Trust were involved in that. And it was also, that project wasn't only about the St Columba. It's about good relationships, about our identities, and what's our common good between both the Catholic and Protestant community.
And I understand that then, even though you haven't been in school for this past number of years, you did a further qualification in Catholic education.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, I had just started in the role, and about a year into it, I was asked would I be interested in going on and doing the Masters. The St Mary's University Twickenham were delivering the Masters programme in St Mary's College.
A Masters in?
Catholic Leadership.
Catholic Education Leadership.
Yeah, Catholic Education Leadership. So at the actual particular time, I was about to get married and I was buying a house, so the full journey across. But I thought I won that time, and I decided I would do the course, and I thought it was absolutely fantastic from start to finish. It was a bit daunting thinking going back to study but it gives you a sound knowledge about what Catholic teaching is. Because for me, when I was teaching in a school, I openly admit I seen it as a good lifestyle. You had great holidays. It was a well-paid job and a career and pension, but it was when you happen to do the Catholic teaching and the Catholic masters, you learn so much about what it really means to be a Catholic educator, and it's not just a job, it's a vocation, and the impact that you're going to have on the students that come under your care is, and being a role model to them students is.
You obviously were quite inspired by the whole thing.
I was. I think it was because of the group. I was inspired by the lectures. John Lydon, he was very inspirational throughout it, Bishop, and it just gives you an understanding, because once you're in that teaching setting, it seems like you just think about the academics, about the good grades, but it's much more about that, and it's a pastoral support for children as well.
I remember there's a book came out about the early 90s from Harvard University Press, Catholic Schools and the Common Good, by Brickley in Holland. But one of the sort of characteristics of Catholic education that they thought worked particularly well was what they called an inspirational ideology.
Yeah.
And I think you're saying that sort of there was an inspirational dimension to what you got from the masters.
Yeah, most certainly, because you were looking at the different leadership styles, the hierarchical and the servant leadership, and once you started researching a lot more, and you were looking at the schools, the primary and post-primary schools, which I was looking at the particular time, and the servant leadership and their role within that actual Catholic school community, how everyone, whether it's teaching assistant, the teachers, the pupils, the parents, cleaners, everyone have a vital role in that sense of community and building that sense of community within a Catholic school.
Well, I presume for a master's you had some research to do of some sort for a thesis.
I did, Bishop, yeah.
Can you? I'm asking you. I don't know the answer to the question.
Yes,
So,
yeah.
what did you do?
Yeah, I looked at the impact on retreats and the spiritual impact that it has on the students. I really enjoyed that thesis, in the sense that I got to interview principals in the primary and post-primary schools within the setting, and I got to understand what they actually thought about the Catholic ethos and how they develop it within the schools and how they implement the Catholic ethos. And there was a couple of conversations which I had, and the principals were highlighting that when they took over a job as a principal, they had a responsibility, whether through the Sisters of Mercy, someone else, they developed that ethos of the Sisters of Nazareth, where it was caring and sharing, and every thought and every decision which they made was reflecting and discerning, looking back at that ethos and the school ethos within their actual building.
So the research was helpful for you to understand?
Yeah, I found it extremely beneficial, in the sense that it looked at Catholic ethos and the different facets of Catholic education and the benefits, in particular spiritual impact, that it can have on students.
Well, I mean, obviously you're enthusiastic about it. You said you had great primary school education, post-primary education, great experience as a student, as doing a PGCE, and in teaching here, and now the research you did and so on. But certainly you would get the impression from other quarters that there are many who say Catholic education has no contribution to make to the world of education. I mean, I certainly have a sense in Northern Ireland there are those who want rid of Catholic education, who, when they say they want a shared future, they really want Catholic education out of the mix. Would you sense there are challenges ahead for those of us, and those like yourself who have children coming up, those like yourself who want Catholic education to be there for the future?
Yeah, I think there is challenges, and that's been evident recently with that integrated education bill. I'm a strong advocate for Catholic education. I have 2 young children. I will be sending them to a Catholic school, and I think it's been the experiences that my parents give to me by developing the faith at home, and the faith element that I had within both Rosemount Primary School and St Joseph's Boys School. Yes, there are challenges, but the impact and the benefits of attending a Catholic school, from that spiritual and pastoral element, and developing the whole child, they make a great contribution to society, and that is evident throughout our city in particular. I can only speak from Derry. The people who've had fantastic educational experiences in Catholic schools have went on to great things.
And you seem to allude earlier on to the Catholic education in another allegedly very divided city, Liverpool,
Yeah, yeah.
where Catholic schools were not seen as being the source of a problem, but actually a contribution to the common good.
Yeah, because it brought communities together, brought people from all religions together under one roof. They all lived in harmony. They got on. They enjoyed the ethos, and that's why, in particular, why people sent their children to St Francis of Assisi and St Anselm's College for that educational experience, and how the students actually got on, and the support that the staff brought to those students, and also that sense of community and that Catholic ethos, which was evident throughout the school.
Well, what I'm hearing you saying is that those two schools you experienced in Liverpool actually were very integrated schools.
They were.
But precisely because they were Catholic, they were able to be integrated.
Yes, yes.
In other words, there's no contradiction between being a Catholic school and an integrated school, whereas here they're seen as being polar opposites.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they were integrated. There was all different religions within that actual group, and they got on. And we have this idea here that it has to be integrated education. Well, Catholic education is a fantastic educational experience, and students can be from all different Christian groups can be all part of that within the Catholic education sector.
And I think what I was hearing you saying is that if you have an ethos in the school and a reasonably clear vision for the school, you can integrate the different forms of learning in the different subject areas, rather than geography and biology and PE and so on. You actually can offer an integrated worldview that encompasses literature and history and science and astronomy and philosophy and religion and everything else.
And that probably echoes, I was listening to the radio station today, and funny, a teacher was speaking on that, and he said it's very important within that ethos that it's being integrated right across with literature, with science, with all the various different subjects that students can learn about the world around us during that particular lesson.
And I suppose what I also heard you saying too was that the outreach to the community is important, because people have heard me saying that 4/5 of a young person's waking hours are spent outside the school. In other words, if they're not getting some sort of integrated message between what happens in school and the pressures they're under in other parts of their lives, there'll be a huge contradiction. And schools end up being blamed for not teaching absolutely everything, whereas so many other influences are working in a young person's life. You're very much involved in GAA.
I am,
which so often can link in with the school and with the community.
Faith, football, family. That's the three. No particular order in that sense, but I'm involved in the GAA. It's the hotbed of the parish. It links in very well with the school, with the parish church. I know in the club that I'm involved in at the moment, they have a great relationship with the parish priest. There's no training during those times, and I think when you have that community ethos, and very much a GAA has that. Doesn't matter where you go in the world, you'll see a GAA top. Once you build that sense of community and integration in the different roles within a GAA club, it has the makings for an exciting time.
In a very fragmented world too, because I think the world tends to be fragmenting. There's a lot of identity politics, and I'm a subgroup of this and I'm a subgroup of that. Whereas I think what you're talking about is giving an experience in education of a community of diverse people within the school, and of a school community that links in with the wider community.
That's important, Bishop. And I think, like, outside of school, you're saying 80% of people will spend the majority of their time outside, and lots of people pupils that I've taught, they're integrating with people from all our religions in the sporting world. If it's local soccer clubs, cricket clubs, rugby clubs, they're all participating in their engaging and building strong relationships. And I think that has been really, really beneficial, because in the 90s, during my experience, we didn't have that. So the integration has improved, I think, tenfold right across. Where you're seeing young people mixing with different.
And Catholic schools are keen to make their contribution to reconciliation.
Yeah, Catholic schools have been working tirelessly, in particular in my own parish, St Mary's, who work on a Sunday club with a Saturday morning programme with Lisneal College, where the Lisneal students come over there and vice versa. Shared education project, and that has been continuing the past 4 or 5 years, and that's just one of many examples of schools throughout the city who are working tirelessly in programs, shared education programs, and the work also with the Churches Trust has been working on programs with both Catholic and Protestant schools, and integration in Catholic schools has been at the forefront of that, developing that, and that's something that I think they've deserve massive credit for. It's not a case of we're just educating Catholic children, certainly not. It's shared education projects that has been really bearing fruit the past 4 or 5 years.
I think I heard there that the head boy, is it in St. Joseph's?
I haven't.
It certainly is not from a Christian background.
Yeah, and there's been many students.
And he's the head boy?
Yeah.
It may be that school or another school, but that's what I heard.
Yeah.
So that there's room for everybody at the table.
Yeah,
and Catholic means universal, worldwide.
Yeah.
I'm conscious of the time here. You're obviously very passionate about this subject.
Yes.
I'm an old former principal, but I think I see a young budding principal coming up in front of me here now. Emmet, thanks for sharing all your enthusiasm, your life's journey so far. I'm sure your children will blossom as well whenever they have you at home and them in a good school, but it'll help them to flourish and blossom. Emmet, thanks so much for sharing your passion for this. Watch this space. This guy's going places. Emmet Thompson's the name. Emmet, thank you so much for being with us this evening. Thank you for all you have done so far and are doing in the parish. And please God, you'll continue to blossom and make a wonderful contribution to helping our young people flourish and grow. Emmet, thank you very much. Thank you everybody for following that. I hope you enjoyed our 4 conversations this week. Very diverse. Catholic education simply wants to be at the table when we come to putting together the future of education in Northern Ireland. We don't want to be put in the corner with a dunce's hat on and told to be quiet. I think you've heard from different people this week what a great wealth we have to bring to the common good. We look forward to be part of that conversation. Join us again whenever we announce the next series of conversations. Slán agus Beannacht.